Well, I've got good news and bad news. The good news is Trump's fundraising has gone through the roof since the guilty verdict. The bad news is I believe he's actually facing prison time. And I'm going to lay out my case. Now, if you disagree, I'm not the smartest guy on the planet. You don't have to agree with me, but I'm just going to lay out my logic. So if you refute it, that's fine, but you have to do it with logic, not because you just feel something. That's my only requirement. You have to show me A to B, because I am going to be showing you A to B. And so we're going to this entire. So if you don't like Donald Trump, or you're sick of hearing about him, this guilty verdict is cataclysmic. It is country shaking, and so that's what I'm going to be talking about. So strap yourself in. This is going to be a bumpy ride. It is Friday, May 31st, 2024. I'm Stuart Allister, and this is Cigar Friday. From The Independent, Trump fundraising site crashes after influx of donors following guilty New York hush money verdict. He's been getting donations, most of which, by the way, are coming from people who have never donated. Brand new donors. We're not talking about 1 million here and 100,000 there. No, we're talking about, just average, everyday Americans. This guilty verdict was the same as the mugshot. It belies what really lies at the heart of this plot against Donald Trump. And we're going to get into that. And I have some uncomfortable things to say about us conservatives. I wouldn't say it's uncomfortable. It may come as unfair to you. It may come across as, hey, I thought you were a conservative. I am. But I'm telling you, point blank, what I'm going to tell you is rooted in fact. All right. Before we get into it, why don't you wreck that like button, subscribe to my channel if you haven't, and press that notification bell so you never miss an episode. All right, away we go. Donald Trump's historic conviction in the New York hush money case on Thursday may put the former president in prison, but it hasn't slowed down the enthusiasm for his campaign. We're going to, like the quote, Jen Psaki, we're going to circle back to that. Shortly after the verdict was announced, the official GOP fundraising site connected to his 2024 effort crashed. Quote, the American people see through crooked Joe Biden's rigged show trial. The campaign wrote on X. So many Americans were moved to donate to President Trump's campaign that the win red pages went down. We are working on getting the website back online as quickly as possible. Major Trump supporters said they were not deterred by the conviction. In fact, they appeared energized by it. Quote, all of the charges are contrived. Robert Bigelow, who has given over $9 million to an outside group supporting Trump, told Reuters. Within minutes of Trump being convicted, His campaign sent out fundraising email claiming the former president was, quote, a political prisoner. I don't know that that is hyperbolic. I think it is accurate. At this point, yes, he is a political prisoner. He's not, behind bars yet, but for all practical intents and purposes, he's a political prisoner. What would you call it? Now, I know some of you were thinking, well, we're going to appeal, and just hold on to that thought. Quote, I was just convicted in a rigged political witch hunt trial. I did nothing wrong, the email reads. The message also boasted that Joe Biden's chances of a second term end today. I gotta tell you, I'm unsure. I'm unsure as to what they thought they were going to get out of this. I mean, there has to be someone pulling the levers, pressing the buttons. There's got to be someone there, but maybe not. I mean, look at Kamala. She's allowed to go out there and, use those word salads where no one understands what she's talking about. I mean, she sounds ridiculous each time she goes out there, yet nobody reins her in. I would think at some point they would say, hey, Kamala, during the campaign, we're going to need you to, take a back seat. You and your husband go to California and, chill out. 17% of voters in the new poll said a guilty verdict would make them less likely to vote for Trump, while 67% said a guilty verdict would make no difference in their choice in November. Good. Trump has fundraised off his legal troubles before. Last year, following the publication of his mugshot in an ongoing 2020 election conspiracy case with Fani Willis, the Trump campaign used the image to rake in millions in donations. Trump later gave away pieces of the suit worn in a photo alongside trading cards as part of his fundraising efforts. For all of those morons out there that continually call Trump a fascist, he's a fascist. Okay, Donald Trump is first and foremost a capitalist. How do you not understand what he's been doing and not understand that he's a capitalist, not a fascist? I don't know. I don't know. Trump may be the first president in U.S. history to be convicted of a crime, but his campaign is steamrolling ahead with a slight lead over Joe Biden in a national poll average. Here's the thing: it's not slight. I'm tired of hearing that. I think Donald Trump is exponentially ahead. The free advertising Donald Trump has been getting since the raid on Mar-a-Lago, since that raid, he has been getting free press across the globe. Forget about the United States, across the globe. The thought that somehow, Sleepy Joe is in striking distance. It's like, come on. So I want to get back to this issue of Donald Trump's historic conviction in the New York hush money case on Thursday may put the former president in prison. I told you guys before, someone left a comment that it was highly unlikely that Donald Trump was going to actually face jail time, which, okay. I understand the sentiment. Here's the problem. Conservatives have a fatal flaw in our thinking. Now, I call it a flaw, and you may take this as the pejorative, but don't. Just take it as a reality. It is the way that we think, but it costs us. It costs us. You see, here, because this is what I want to get to. Hang on 1 second here. Okay. From Britannica, confirmation bias. Confirmation bias. People's tendency to process information by looking for or interpreting information that is consistent with their existing beliefs. This bias approach to decision making is largely unintentional, and it results in a person ignoring information that is inconsistent with their beliefs. I think as conservatives, our confirmation bias is a fatal flaw. You see, the reason that it goes kind of unchecked is because our belief system is a universal good. This is why it goes unchecked, unchallenged, because it is a net plus. It is a positive. Look, when you have a city and the city is being run by conservatives, I'm not talking about Republicans now. I'm talking about conservatives. When the city is being run by conservatives and the city council is run by conservatives, by and large, when the people and the police force is run by conservatives, you know what ends up happening? Nothing. Why? Because part of being a conservative is we judge individuals, not groups. That's why the left has such a problem with us. See, when they see someone, they automatically put them in the group, which is what we call identity politics. Conservatives, on the other hand, judge the individual. Now, the individual being judged, apart from whatever group he or she belongs to, is probably due to the fact that, for the most part, we all believe in God. You see, God is not going to come and save a tribe or a group. God targets individuals. period. I said, that's what we do. So when you're in a city and somebody has, broken a law, say, and everybody is all of the institutions are being run by conservatives, guess what's going to end up happening? That person is going to get the presumption of innocence. Why? Well, that's how we see the world. It's our worldview. That's how we see the world. That person is innocent until proven guilty. In fact, you've got some conservatives that they believe, and I'm one of them, you are mandated to forgive that person. Point blank. Or as Jesus said, you won't be forgiven. That's scary. Imagine God's telling you you won't be forgiven. Do you know what that actually means? Have you ever stopped and thought what it actually means? It means that Jesus' sacrifice will no longer count for you. Now, if you are okay with dealing with that and you think, I can fare okay on my own, hey, go for it. But here's my unsolicited advice. When you get in front of God, do not hand him your resume. Bad career move. Don't do that. Plead the blood. Throw yourself on the mercy of the court. Plead the blood of Christ, and that's it. And let Jesus' blood speak for you. But I digress. This confirmation bias we have is what keeps us thinking that they will not put Trump behind bars. Why? Because that's how we see the world. The problem with conservatives is that we think the left have a set of principles just like we do. Allow me to disabuse you of that. They don't have a set of principles. They don't have a North Star, so to speak. There is no right way to do it. When people say things like, with Trump in the Russia hoax, they keep moving the goalpost. They're not moving the goalpost. And don't say that about Democrats, because there is no goalpost. What that does is it infers on them a standard. There is no standard. They're not moving the goalpost. Remember, it turned out that Robert Mueller's, 2-year, $42 million case against Trump came out with no conspiracy, no coordination with anyone in Trump's campaign, with Trump himself, or anyone in his orbit. It was a completely wash. Nothing had happened. There was nothing there. So what did Democrats do? Obstruction of justice. It's like, wait. What? No, we're going to impeach him on obstruction of justice because, well, he got mad because he found out we were trying to, frame him. And they call that moving the goalpost. It's not moving the goalpost. When you're a Democrat, there is no goalpost. And see, as conservatives, we are conferring on them something that is not there. You think, well, they would never do X, Y, and Z until they do X, Y, and Z. See, that's the fatal flaw. And it's confirmation bias. Look, he says unintentionally, and it results in a person ignoring information that is inconsistent with their beliefs. So for those of you who say that Donald Trump will not be tossed in prison, What evidence do you have to offer me? Because I'm going to offer you some evidence that says, yeah, he will be. People said, well, they're not going to raid Mar-a-Lago. They would never raid his home until they raided his home. Well, they won't indict him. I'll tell you that right now. Of course, they indicted him. Not once, not twice, not 3 times, but 4 times. Oh, he won't go to trial. This is ridiculous. And of course, he goes to trial. Well, they probably won't, convict him. It'll be a hanged jury until they came back with 34 counts, felony counts. All guilty. But now some way you tell me, well, they wouldn't throw him in prison though. What would make you think that? Why do you think Secret Service is talking to the local jail warrens? It's confirmation bias, and it is a fatal flaw. Oh, they would never do that. They would never send children into a gay bar until children tipped drag queens during performance at gay bar in Texas. Oh yeah, and for those of you who think they weren't doing it, look, there was this. It's not gonna lick itself. They had 7-year-olds, 8-year-olds in there. People, oh, they would never do that. When I tell you there are no parameters, they don't have a set of principles that guide their decision making. They're guided by their belly. Whatever their belly wants, their belly gets. And they'll burn down everything until they get it. Now, some of you are probably still convinced, no, Trump's not going to prison. By the way, you have no evidence to prove that to me. That they will not absolutely toss him in prison. And by the way, I'm drawing a picture for you. Look at what they have done so far. Look at the RICO charges in Georgia. What do you think is going to happen there? What do you think is going to happen here? You think that on July 11th, Juan Merchan is going to somehow come to his senses and say, well, I know you were convicted of 34 felonies, all of which carrying the 4-year sentence. But I'm going to give you a slap on the wrist, or I'm going to say that you can't go beyond, your penthouse in New York. You have no evidence to support that they won't send him to prison. You have no evidence to support that, but my evidence does support them sending him to prison. So if you were going to tell me that they're not going to send him to prison, okay, fine. But Stu, you don't understand. You see, what the law says, God. Donald Trump was convicted 34 counts. No one knows what the crime was. The DA took a misdemeanor who had passed statute of limitations and ratcheted up to a felony and dragged him into court. But somehow, some way you think, well, they wouldn't go that far. What do you base that on? You do understand these are the very same people that said, there's nothing wrong with a 7-year-old going to a gay bar. Sure, they're tipping, the drag queens, and sure, these are the same people. And see, it's a fatal flaw. And by the way, you've seen it several times. It's just that you don't know you were seeing it. Oh no. You've watched it firsthand. A conservative suffering from confirmation bias. You see it each time Alejandro Mayorkas goes to Congress and they get so excited and exasperated. You see Tom Cotton from Arkansas. You say Josh Hawley from where is he? I think Minnesota. You see Kennedy from Louisiana. You see Ted Cruz from Texas. You see all of those senators going berserk. It's like, what are you talking about? Remember when Josh Hawley was asked, well, do you believe that men can get pregnant? And he was like, no, of course not. Well, see, you're transphobic. It's like, wait, what are you talking about? Do you know why they get exacerbated? Why they get so excited? Why they get so frustrated? Because they believe that Christopher Wray and Alejandro Mayorkas and Merrick Garland, and they think they have a set of principles that they're operating under. And I'm here to tell you, no, they don't. And because of your confirmation bias, you get frustrated. You're trying to hold them to a standard they don't even believe exists. They would never put him in prison. What do you base that on? No, really. Okay, just tell me what you base it on. It is his fate is in this crooked judge's hands with regard to sentencing. But you say he's not going to prison. Well, what do you base that on? You see, that's why nothing happens. We believe that they are operating on some sort of, North Star. When Josh Hawley was asked point blank, do you believe men can get pregnant? When he said no, guess what? Not one Democrat disagreed with her. What do you think that was about? Just stop and think. Chuck Schumer, Adam Schiff, Eric Swalwell, Maxine Waters, Nancy Pelosi, Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Just go down the list. Look at Jamal Bowman. Rips down the exit signs, pulls the fire alarm, and what did Democrats say? Nothing. Why? They don't have a North Star. They're not operating from a group of principles. They are principleless. Their principle? Power. By any means necessary. You've got them now siding with a known Teletubby group from Gaza. And you're going to tell me, no, they wouldn't put him in prison, though. Again, okay, if that's what you're telling me, that this crooked judge, the crooked judge who allowed, he said, God, it's so frustrating to me because I see it and it's difficult when others don't, and it just drives me bananas. He literally allowed the prosecutor to tell the jury that there were campaign finance laws broken. And when they made that point where there is no evidence known in fact, Rashawn just sat there and said nothing and sent them into the liberation room. Said, all right, just go in there and come back, just come back with a verdict. Just knowing that, there was no one disputed the fact that there were violations, campaign finance violations, and don't worry about it. Just go back there and deliberate. Wouldn't allow the experts to even testify. But you think, no. They would never put him in prison. That's crazy. Yeah, kind of like an FBI raiding Mar-a-Lago. And then we find out later, not only did they raid Mar-a-Lago, they were ready for a firefight. They went in with no FBI insignia, knowing Secret Service patrols the grounds. They went in there with ammo, and they were told point blank by Merrick Garland that they can use deadly force on a former president of the United States, but you think he won't be sent to prison. I just have to ask, okay, what proof do you have? Oh, look, this is how we do it at this channel. That's how we do it. You got to give me some evidence. What is your evidence? Do you have any? That they won't put him in prison. Now, to be fair, it's possible that maybe they confine him to Mar-a-Lago, with the ankle bracelet. But I'm going to tell you, no, they won't. You know why? Mar-a-Lago is huge. It's like a $400 million property. It's enormous. He could, it's like a world in a world. They're not going to send him there. Now, some of you are maybe thinking, well, they would give him an 8th ankle bracelet and they would confine him. They confined him to his penthouse in New York. But by the way, so he can't go to any rallies. He can't campaign. He can't even be at the, when we nominate our, nominee. He won't even be able to go there. The only way that maybe they'll be able to go there is if the GOP, they have to push up the date. No, they'll have to. I believe it is the 14th. His sentencing is on the 11th. But once again, that's just a coincidence. You see, the reason I believe they will absolutely toss him into prison is because they want to know his whereabouts 24/7. And if they do allow him to go to his penthouse in New York, well, how are they going to sell that to his leftist maniacs? What do you mean he doesn't go to prison? He was not only indicted, found guilty on 34 counts. And now you're letting him lounge around in his penthouse? The left would go berserk. Then, Bragg and Michonne, they're not serving their constituents. Their constituents are begging for blood. Once again, you don't think he's going to prison? Okay, fine. What's your evidence that Marshawn, that Alvin Bragg, that jury will be fair and impartial? What's your evidence? No, you got to give me your evidence. I don't think you have any. Now, maybe if he goes to his penthouse in New York, maybe, just maybe, they say, okay, well, you can go there, but we're going to wire the place. We're going to have cameras everywhere, up to and including in your restroom. We'll just, blank that out for people, but we're going to have cameras everywhere. When you take a dump, we'll know about it. The only way they're going to get that is maybe they put cameras, everywhere. But the best way to do that, prison. Hold on. Some of you maybe think I'm done. I'm not done. These beliefs can include a person's expectations in a given situation and their predictions about a particular outcome. People are especially likely to process information to support their own beliefs when an issue is highly important and self-relevant. It's called confirmation bias. That's the reason you don't think they'll toss him in prison, because you think that they're operating on some sort of principles. And I'm telling you point blank, there are no principles. You're talking about a group of people that are perfectly fine with taking a 7-year-old to a gay bar and tipping the drag queens. But you think, no, they would never pass, they wouldn't go that far. It is a fatal flaw. And once again, it's because it's a universal good. What? The way we see the world, it's a universal good. Because, well, we adhere to a set of laws. We endeavor to make everyone adhere to those same set of laws. We hold the U.S. Constitution as the rule, the law of the land. You really think Democrats believe that? You think these leftists believe that? Why do you think they have sanctuary cities and sanctuary states? That's because they don't give a crap about the Constitution. Why do you think they want to relinquish you from your firearms? Because they don't give a crap. Not one scintilla of a crap about your constitutional rights, because they only listen to their bellies. And when something is an issue that's highly important, like your presidential candidate being tossed in prison, man, your confirmation bias is like peaking. I mean, it's like up here. One of the things in my first book, my Conversations with the Devil tells Peter, one of the biggest flaws in the human psyche is that no one ever questions their own motives. They think if they thought it, it must be. You'd be amazed at the people who think they actually thought something through when they didn't. You'd be amazed. See, they think, let's say a person is really concerned about A, the problem of A, and they're fretting. What if A happens? What if A happens? Oh my God, if A happens, what's going to happen? I hate A. A is cruel. I hate A. They think that is actually critical thinking. It isn't. A conservative says, what is A? What did it come from? Who wrote A? What were their biases? When did A come into existence? Why wasn't A used on this, and that? See, that's critical thinking. They don't do that. Your belly is not a critical thinker. Your belly wants what it wants. And when you deny it, well, I think you know what happens. Cities are burnt down. So, I'm just asking you, please, tell me why you think Donald Trump won't be tossed into prison.
Let me get your take on what we heard from the White House and the Biden campaign earlier this week. Because remember when we were all waiting for a verdict, the campaign comes out and they say, we're going to have President Biden make a statement after the verdict is out. He's going to do it from the White House so it doesn't look political. Yeah, right. And then they say, if he is acquitted, if it's a hung jury, we are planning attacks on President Trump. I mean, when I read that, I was so taken aback. I thought, could this actually be true? Are they?
Did you hear that? Biden people come out and say, hey, if it's a hung jury, if they acquit him, we're going to attack. What about the rule of law? You hear Joe Biden going around saying, hey, it's very dangerous when you say that the system was rigged. That's dangerous. That's dangerous talk. As his people do the exact thing. And you think they have principles? See, if you think that they won't toss President Trump in prison, then you're telling me, oh, they have principles. The left have principles. All the purple-haired people have principles. There are certain laws they would never cross. These are the very same people who said abortion should be legal up to birth. But you think, no, they would never toss president in prison.
Admitting that they are intimidating people right now, even before. I mean, how much of that intimidated the jury, do you think?
How much of that intimidated the jury? Do you think that they were sitting there thinking, well, let's see, they still haven't defined an actual crime. They were allowed to think that there were campaign finance laws broken. Let's see, guilty 34 times, guilty. They didn't need to be intimidated. I am not tooting my own horn, but beep, beep. I told you. The goal was always getting Trump in front of a jury. The jury being suffering from Trump derangement syndrome, Whatever is said by the prosecution, whatever is said by the judge, whatever is said by the defense really won't matter. Why? Because those jurors who are suffering from TDS, they're going to say guilty because they believe that Donald Trump. What do you think would happen if we were to ask the jurors, do you think Trump is a Russian agent? What do you think they would say? Do you believe the Russia hoax? What do you think they would say? They would say, well, yes, he just got away with it.
Well, I think the jury was very much intimidated, even though they were anonymous. I think the judge was intimidated. Nobody wants to be Dershowitz. You know what being Dershowitz means? It means being very popular in places like Martha's Vineyard and Harvard, then defending President Trump on constitutional grounds and being completely canceled so that no one will talk to you, to your family members,
That's
to
right.
your wife. And every juror understands that. Every judge understands that. If you're perceived as doing anything in favor of Trump in a city like New York, particularly in Manhattan, your life is over. And every juror understood that. Every judge understood that. In fact, one juror got out of the case saying, I can't stand the idea that I'll be discriminated against if I vote for Trump. This case should never have been held in Manhattan. It should have been held in Staten Island or Rockland County. It should have been held after the election, not before the election. Everything is wrong with this case.
Alan Dershowitz is telling you to be Alan Dershowitz means you start losing friends. It means businesses will no longer do business with you. Why? For those of you who want a prime example of what I'm talking about being true, Alan Dershowitz, hate him or love him, well, he has a set of principles by which his life is guided. The principle is the U.S. Constitution. When it violates the U.S. Constitution, he screams foul. How many Alan Dershowitz do you think the Democrats have? How many? And when they do, guess what ends up happening to them? They get investigated by the IRS. You don't believe me? Ask Matt Taibbi. He got investigated by the IRS because he came out in favor of Twitter being, on trial for censorship.
Everything that
terrible.
American was violated by this process.
Alan, that is so incredibly terrible what you said, and you're right. It should have been held in some place like Staten Island or somewhere where we knew that maybe we could get a shot at some fairness. Will Scharf is the Trump appellate team attorney. He joined Special Report last night. Here's what he said. Watch.
This case is replete with reversible error, going back to the very first day, continuing through jury instructions. Every aspect of this case is ripe for appeal. We are going to appeal as quickly as we can. We will seek expedited review of this case, and we're going to trust that the appellate courts in New York understand the dangerous Pandora's box that this lawless judgment has opened, and that they understand the potential ramifications to our legal system.
Now, the only person, and this is I'm so beside myself with this. The only one that seems to be seeing this for what it is Mark Levine. He's the only one that seems to see this for what it is, because everybody is talking about, well, they'll just appeal it. When we appeal it, we'll get this. And when they appeal, we'll get that. It's like, what are you talking about? An appellate court in New York? You might as well send it to the ninth district in San Francisco. Listen.
Couple of things. First of all, my reaction is that the Democrat Party has completely destroyed our electoral system. Jack Smith has criminalized what used to be legitimate, although rough and tumble politics, challenging of elections, separate slates of electors. We've done that in our history. He's actually charged Trump related to free speech comments and so forth and so on. And you combine that with Mershon and Bragg, who have now criminalized we don't know what, affecting an election. We don't have the foggiest idea what is legal or illegal anymore in our federal election. And that's part of the problem. I'll get to that in a minute. That's number one. Number two, we have half the country cheering the fact that the Constitution of the United States was shredded, that you literally had a Stalinist-like show trial. We don't know what the predicate crime is. You've heard it all. We don't know what the elements are. The jury instructions are something out of Kafka. And Joe Biden is perfectly happy with it. We have an autocratic Democrat Party that will do anything to win, change the election laws, tax Supreme Court justices, the border's wide open so they can win more congressional seats under the census count. The Democrat Party embraces the river to the sea crowd, the anti-Semites, just the way they embrace the racists in the 1950s and 60s. The Democrat Party is destroying this country. That's number one, as he said.
These are the same Democrats that concocted the Ku Klux Klan. That is the spirit that runs through the Democratic Party. It's not for liberty. It is power. This guy seems to be the only one that's thinking clearly.
Listen, number two, I don't mean to upset anybody, but there are lawyers who do different kinds of things, who have different kinds of experiences. I've spent 40 years litigating against these people. I spent 40 years litigating against the federal government and state governments. As president of Landmark Legal Foundation, and now its chairman, we've taken up cases we said we could never win. The whole issue of school choice is now an option because Landmark Legal Foundation spent 20 years litigating this in the state of Wisconsin in the U.S. Supreme Court. We were told we couldn't win. We won. Bill Clinton was held in contempt because we filed something called a letter of judicial notice, which nobody really does, with Judge Susan Wright in the late 1990s to inform her that she should hold Bill Clinton in contempt. She waited until after the impeachment, and that letter was the basis of most of her ruling. I cannot tell you how many times I have been told by lawyers and others, you're not going to win, you're not going to win. The job of a lawyer advocate is to try and find a serious, substantive, even if it's rarely used, avenue to represent your client. You have been told over and over, we've heard over and over again, from people who have different experiences than I do, and know the New York appellate system. What have they said? They basically said justice denied is okay. Well, get it eventually. The whole purpose of this case was to affect the election. And so when you say, we'll have a reversal, but it's going to take time, it'll be after the election, then the evil actions that were done, the unconstitutional actions that were done, all the hand-wringing that's been done by lawyers and others for the past 6 weeks will be rewarded.
This whole notion of waiting and relying on the New York appellate court, those are the same wackadoodles. They are cut from the same ilk as Juan Mershon. But we're hoping against hope that they will what? Embrace the same principles that you and I hold? Is that what you're going to hang your hat on? Hey, maybe they do come back and with, because I mean, like the guy said, it is replete with reversible error. But are we really going to rely on them?
When you say that Mershon doesn't care about the appeal because he got what he wanted to get, what's your response? Oh, well, maybe 5 years from now, the American people will rise up and we'll change our legal system. We can't change our legal system. It's not subject to vote. It's not subject to popular sovereignty. That's the whole point.
What he's telling you is you don't get to actually affect law. That is for the legislators. Why do you think Democrats are en masse giving you millions and millions and millions of illegals so they can have congressional power? And if you think the laws that are obscure now, wait until they have a ridiculous majority of which the likes we've never seen.
Judges at the federal level are appointed for life. These Democrat judges in these Democrat areas, they don't give a damn what I say or anybody on Fox says. They have a constituency. Mershon's constituency is the same as Alvin Bragg's. So the question is this: do we allow this to go by without trying to bring the matter to the steps of the Supreme Court, whether the Supreme Court takes it or not? I'm not a Nostradamus. Maybe there's a 10% chance, but the country's worth it. And so what an advocate like I do, I deal in the appellate and Supreme Court realm, not at the trial court realm, although we can comment on it. How do you get this case out of the mire of New York, which takes a long time, the New York lawyers are telling us, which will be done after the election? The New York lawyers are telling us. What do? Well, we sit here and we wring our hands and whine about it. No, we don't. We try, even if we fail, to pave a way to the United States Supreme Court. Now, why is this important to the United States Supreme Court? For multiple reasons. You've had lawyers on your program and others say, this case has a national impact. This case, a state judge, an acting state judge, took federal jurisdiction. Is the Supreme Court happy with an acting state judge taking federal jurisdiction over a presidential campaign and federal campaign laws? I'm betting not.
This judge just told the rest of the nation he holds your fate with regard to your candidate in his hands. As his daughter makes millions off the case. But you say, no, prison is out of the question.
Why? Because there's thousands of these judges in 50 states. There's tens of thousands of these state prosecutors in 50 states. Where it stands now is they can do whatever the hell they want to do. No due process, no predicate crimes, no elements to be proven. So is New York, the appellate courts in New York, they're going to decide for the whole damn country?
So do they get to decide for the entire country who's president and who isn't, where the president resides and where he doesn't reside? I'm question your own confirmation bias. Question it. You think that they won't do this because you wouldn't do it. You think they have a set of principles that are guiding them because you have a set of principles guiding you. I am telling you, there aren't any guiding principles for the Democrat Party. And by the way, when you do express your own principles and you're a Democrat, Alan Dershowitz told you what happens to you. You are canceled. You are no longer you no longer can do business with them. He said that when he goes to Martha Vineyard, like, people won't even look at him anymore. They don't even have dinner with him anymore. They won't even engage with him anymore. Don't tell me that these people have principles. Because if you tell me that Donald Trump won't be sent to prison by these people, you're telling me that these people actually have guiding principles.
What goes on in Minnesota and California and Kansas and Oklahoma? No. No. And we're going to reward the timing, the Bragg-Mershon timing, right smack in the middle of the damn election to affect the outcome? No. So you've got to try and come up with creative but substantive and serious legal arguments to try and find a pathway to get out of this mire, this muck, and hope that the Supreme Court will take it and do the right thing. And if they don't, it's over. Now, what do we do? Well, we look at the last time the Supreme Court got involved in a presidential election. It's very, very rare. But they did in Bush versus Gore. Why did they do that? Because the Florida Supreme Court was out of control. The Florida Supreme Court was changing the election rules. And so the court took it up because they had a petitioner. In fact, the Bush team, they petitioned the court. Well, the court will never take it. But they did take it. And what did they do? Under the Equal Protection Clause of the Fifth Amendment, applies to the state under the 14th Amendment, they said, you treated voters unequally from one county to the next. Certain chads were counted, certain ballots were not counted, and so forth and so on. So the voters are voting, and they don't even know what the rules are.
I'm hoping that you can see the dire situation we are in right now. That's what I'm hoping you will see. And that your confirmation bias should be challenged. And it can only be challenged by you. The reason I'm saying that is because that's the only way we are going to do like Mark said and actually petition the Supreme Court. Like, there's waiting on the muck and mire of New York is foolhardy at best. You think Mershon gives a crap about it being overturned? You heard the attorney. The entire case was replete with reversible error. You think he gives a crap about that? Alvin Bragg was out there laughing. Laughing. You heard Biden's people saying if he is acquitted, we're going after him. You got Jack Smith going after President Trump because he said things that he didn't like.
Okay, this is worse. This isn't within a state. This is affecting the whole country. We don't know what our election laws are anymore. We don't even know what election laws are used. Candidates don't know. Presidential candidates don't know. You cannot allow a single judge to determine what our federal campaign laws are, what a presidential election is going to look like, and trying to influence a presidential election. One judge. You cannot have that in this country. We can't sit back and say, okay, it's going up the New York judicial process. It'll be reversed. It won't be in time. The impact is national. The impact is right now in the middle of a presidential election. Right. So Bush v. Gore seems to me to suggest that the court might be receptive to it. I don't know. And the way you get it to the court real fast, Brian, because the lawyers out there go, well, I don't know about this. Let me tell you. You bring a writ of certiorari if it's a statutory appeal to the Supreme Court. There's something called a common law writ. It's used very rarely, but it has been used. the court, what a common law writ is the judiciary on its own, based on its own powers and based on its own precedent, can take on a matter regardless of the certiorari on a statute. That is, it can take up a case. So what I would do, just me, I go up the appellate process in New York, because if the court says no, the Supreme Court, that's all you've got if you're Donald Trump. You want to protect your options. You want to protect your rights. You don't want to miss timing, and then this case stands in New York. Right. But simultaneously, if I were Trump's lawyer, I would move for the appellate court to stay any further decisions by the lower court. But then I would try and go to the U.S. Supreme Court and say, Supreme Court, for all the arguments you've heard on this network for 6 weeks, the due process violations were not just of Donald Trump. They were intended for the outcome that took place, to get a guilty verdict, to put a scarlet letter on the Republican candidate, disparate treatment of the Republican Party, Republican voters, Republican candidate, and interference in the election, because Donald Trump for 6 weeks has not been able to campaign like a normal candidate, to visit voters, to meet voters, to go to rallies. And voters and ultimately the American people are the victims here.
Whether you know this or not, you're the victim. You think it stops with Donald Trump? No, you're the victim. You think they give a crap about you? You think they're wringing their hands? They were jubilant. And Fani Willis is chomping at the bit to do the same. Hold on. Just remember this. These are the people that you're counting on, that would side with Drag Queen Story Hour. I'm telling you, when something is highly important or self-relevant, your confirmation bias kicks in, and you never question it. Why? Because as a conservative, it's a net good. But in this instance, you are conferring something on your enemy, the Democratic Party, that they don't have: a set of morals and principles. How? God. I guess I'm frustrated because it's so obvious to me. You know, it's like the nose on your face. They will put Trump in prison. Yes, they will. Now, maybe they'll remand him to his penthouse in New York. But do you know what that means? Trump doesn't get to go out and talk to the voters. I just need you to see this. If Donald Trump is in prison, either real prison or on lockdown in his own penthouse, he no longer gets to talk to the voters. He doesn't get to shake their hand or kiss the babies. You know, one of the greatest things that he did in the Bronx? They had these black dudes up there with Donald Trump, rappers, saying, "This is our guy." He'll no longer be able to do that. He had a black Puerto Rican standing with him on the stage. The black Puerto Rican says, me with my kiki hair am endorsing Donald Trump for president. Well, he won't be able to do that anymore. But you think Democrats would never take that away from him because, well, they have a guiding set of principles. When you show me no evidence that they do. See, so if you are going to refute what I'm saying, which is fine, and I look forward to it, but you have to tell me A, B, C, D, why you believe the left, that Democrats, that Adam Schiff have guiding principles. You have to prove to me that Hillary Clinton, who is now blaming women for her loss, you have to show me the same people who actually tried to unseat a duly elected president. You have to show me why those people would all of a sudden grow a moral conscience and say, well, I guess prison is too far. I don't know what else I can tell you. I've made my case. Just stop and think about that. Trump doesn't get to hold a rally. He doesn't get to go to all of these, states, those purple states that he must campaign in. He has to go there. Those swing states. He has to be able to rally there, to talk to the people. Look at what he did in the Bronx. It was historical. The Democrats were beside themselves. How dare you come to our backyard? These are our voters. They belong to us. These are our slaves. I'm just trying to get you to see reason. Don't tell me they won't put Donald Trump in prison. You have nothing to back that up. Other than saying, well, first of all, the Secret Service, and well, with the Secret Service, there's going to have to do, they're already hammering that out. They're not going to take the front runner of the GOP. They don't give a... I think you get it. So tell me what you think. For those of you who would like to know what cigar I'm smoking, this is the Romeo and Juliet from Anniversary 1875. And I'm sure you've noticed, this is a good one. This is a good one. It's the Black Label, the Romeo and Juliet 1875 Anniversary. You will not go wrong. All right, that's it for now. If you like this video, smash that like button and subscribe. And if you're following me on the green platform, please press that follow button. And until the next time, God bless.